One. Welcome back to the Name of the Book live show. Today we are joined by Sam Sykes. Sam Sykes is a fantasy author, as you can see
I am.
here.
Is it obvious from seeing? Okay.
Is it obvious? Yeah. We're obviously talking about Seven Blades in Black, which is our name of the book of the month for book club. Most of you probably joined us recently. We really appreciate it. And somehow we managed to trick the author of the book into talking to us. What fuckery. Hi, Sam.
It's Kiera pressure.
I don't know where that came from, but I'm like slowly leaning into it. For a while, I was like, "Oh, that sounds kind of kinky and like not what you want." But then at this point, I'm like, if it's just books, I think we're good.
Yeah, no, it started off just people buying my book saying Piera told me to buy this.
You're like, who the fuck is that?
And then
Some
Piera said, "Come on our show," and I've seen what happens to people who say no.
Oh god, yeah. Look, I tried to keep that really on the lowdown, but I think as you're well aware, legend precedes you, so there's only so much you can do before it just starts echoing through the halls of your enemies.
Right.
But do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your, I guess, author history for those of you people who don't know you?
Sure.
Under the bus.
I got published. In my head, it's always 10 years ago. And I've sort of given up keeping track because, like, the longer I've been published, like, the more that stresses me out. So I've just sort of believed for the past 2 decades that I've been published for 10 years.
Just time travel.
Yeah, and my first books were they were more of a love letter to Dungeons and Dragons. Like, they were a story about 6 malcontents trying their best in a world that hated them. And then you read more and you realize the world hates them because they're kind of assholes. Like, I definitely have a type as well.
We were talking about types earlier, and I was explaining to Sam that Sal is my type 100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the context for that one.
I finished 6 books with those characters, and they were all fun, but like the more I wrote, the less interested I got in, I don't know, sort of not having fun, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like there's a lot of pressure to kind of like dignify fantasy, even though it doesn't need it. But, you know, a lot of people are like, "Oh yes, I'm going to, you know, speak to the myths of etc., or like, you know, I will harken back to Faulkner in my deconstruction of Lord of the Rings."
Yeah, no.
I didn't want to do that. Like, I grew up playing video games like Final Fantasy VI, and those are the stories that made me happy. So those are the stories I wanted to tell. And Seven Blades in Black was kind of the first story where I just said, I want this. Like, I just want to put in whatever makes me happy, and I'll figure out why it's there later.
Okay.
What do you know?
It all seems quite planned ahead of time. So well done.
Yeah, no, like, I guess that's me revealing the trade secret, is that I really don't know what I'm doing. But
I feel like you'll seldom find anyone who actually does. And if they do, then they're a liar, or they have traded their soul to some demon in the depths of hell and need to be considered. No, that's no.
I don't think I was gonna find any demon that would buy my soul, so I thought let's just write a story about an angry woman and her angry girlfriend and her giant bird, and let's just see what happened. Like, I don't think congeniality. I didn't know there were birds in this world until like the first Congeniality's first appearance, and then I thought, well, crap, we might as well just have birds all the time.
No, as a big bird fan myself, I just lapped that up. All of the references to bird related things, and obviously, like, you've got, I guess you kind of replace it with like for like the most common one I can think of is like it's horse shit. And you switch it to bird shit, and it's something so simple, but it really like makes the world just seem that more tangible, as opposed to just, you know, why is no one, you know, making jokes about these giant fucking birds that are just everywhere? So I really appreciate it. I know some people like it's a real hit or miss for me personally, like with that sort of stuff. Like if it's integrated well, like you've done, and it adds to the world, and the world kind of doesn't feel clunky with it. I find that it's such a great tool to have, and it just adds to, you know, it's not just people doing a thing. There's also all of those, I guess, things that you don't think of. I mean, like when I'm doing a quest in my daily life, like going to work, I'm not thinking about, you know, all of the shit around. That sounds, I'm rambling, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind
appreciate the birds.
It's kind of the joy of just accepting a fantasy just on its face, you know? Like no interrogation of like, oh, what is this deconstructing? Like what is this riffing on? It's just like, these are the characters, this is their world. If you don't like it, I'm sorry. If you do like it, come on in. We're gonna have a great time.
Yeah. No, I think that was one of the things that, as I was saying a little bit earlier before we went live, that really got me in it and to it, is it wasn't I mean, like obviously it is a revenge story, so there is that seriousness and that weight to it and the stakes to it, but it wasn't just constant doom and gloom and everyone's really dramatic and we're going to speak really low and husky and everything we say is going to be really pointed and dramatic. Like it's the piss taking, and it's the not taking itself too seriously, and it's the banter and it's the jokes that make it seem I want to say more realistic in a world where there's giant birds and mages. But like that sort of, I don't know if it's a time thing, I don't know if it's a personality or a preference thing, but it makes it, for me, it makes it more palatable, but also it's an enjoyable read. It's not one that I'm like breaking my brain to understand, or I'm not coming out of it thinking like, fuck, that was depressing. Well, as opposed to,
I feel like somewhere along the lines, writers of fantasy kind of forgot where drama comes from. And we kind of adopted this idea that drama is injected rather than grown, you know, when in fact drama comes from emotional conflict. So, you know, at least because I feel the same way, like anything that's like overtly dark, it feels like it's being made dark specifically to like shove it in my face and say, hey, this is a really dark place, you know, take this seriously, which makes me want to not take it seriously, because it's like, you know, no one's laughing, no one's joking, no one's like taking the shit out of each other. But like drama comes from high emotional stakes, in my opinion. So, and you know, these are all very emotional characters, like all of them have problems. And the more I leaned into those problems, I found the drama just sort of came, you know?
Yeah.
And so it was sort of darkness and like, you know, a harsh world, but without me jamming it in people's eye.
Yeah. No, I got really, and I don't know if it's just the way that I read it the first time, like really Mad Max vibes for the scar for some reason. And I don't know. I don't know if that's what you're going for, if that's just where my brain just went desolate wasteland. But, and I think, I mean, I think you did, I was saying earlier, I personally am a really visual reader. So if it's not, I guess, described really well or described in a way that I can at least go, oh, maybe it looks something like this, then I really struggle with it. And I know some authors are kind of leaning into that more. If I give you like a little bit of detail, you can kind of figure it out on your own. But then for me, I find it then makes it really hard to see anything or connect with anything, because I'm just like, you know, here are some characters that kind of maybe look like, I guess it's just me with a different set of hair now in this black room doing things. So I just really wanted to say, you really managed to build this world, which is so massive, with so much going on, that it was really easy to visualize it, fall into it, understand it, as opposed to just kind of having the story going separately. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get where you're going.
Good job at writing is what I'm getting at. I wanted to ask, I guess, all of the obvious basic interviewing an author for a first time questions. I
Sure.
guess your inspiration. I know you said earlier that you wanted to just write things that make you happy, and there's, I guess, a bit of all the influences of your younger life and everything in it. But what brought on Seven Blades in Black? What brought on Sal? What brought on mages? What brought on shit-eating giant birds? Where did it come from?
I don't know.
Great.
Like,
Okay, I have a slightly different question that might be easy to answer. Now that you've written it, now that it's out in the world, you've had a lot of time to think about it. Are there any aspects of the book that you feel, whether consciously or unconsciously, were influenced by media that you've consumed previously? Or not even just media, just life experiences? Is there anything in the book that you feel was drawn from something you experienced before you wrote it?
Well, you know, I'm gonna get real talk on you guys for a second.
We'll allow it.
The driving force of Sal is that she is obsessed. And she cannot let her revenge go because nothing else makes her feel complete. And, you know, that's not to say, like, you know, she like craves or hungers for revenge. It's literally like the only thing holding her together.
Yeah.
And that came from a real place because I was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder about 2 years ago. And like that kind of like I was finishing Seven Blades at the same time, and I was thinking, oh, obsessive compulsive disorder, and then I looked at my previous characters and I'm like, oh, okay,
that
like,
makes sense.
From
yeah, right.
But I do think that's a really pertinent question because I'm a big fan of creative consumption, and I'm a huge believer of the fact that, you know, this is the old wisdom was always like, you know, if you want to write a lot, read a lot. I think that's good advice, but I don't think it goes far enough because we're no longer living in a publishing world where one book informs the next book, informs the next book, informs the next book. Like, we have inspiration coming from everywhere now because, you know, we're not just interested in paler and paler imitations of J.R.R. Tolkien. Now we want more vibrant stories. We want more visual storytelling. We want more emotional characters. So I've always been of the belief that, like, everything you consume, like when you write long enough, you sort of hit the point where you instinctively cannibalize media. And like, you don't even know you're doing it at the time. You'll just sort of be watching something. And like, sometimes you'll have like eureka moments where it's just like, oh, you know, what they're doing there, that's what I would like to do. But other times you'll just pick things up and it's literally just like your brain devouring things and chewing them up and absorbing nutrients and then discarding what it can't work with.
Yeah.
So the short answer is, like, yes, tons of things have influenced it just in media I've absorbed over the year. Like, you know, there's a lot of callbacks, or not callbacks, but, you know, there's a lot of very obvious anime inspiration in there. Like,
have you seen Soul Eater? Was that one of them?
I haven't seen Soul Eater.
Soul Eater, okay, because Soul Eater has talking weapons that turn into humans.
Oh,
so that's one that I thought of while I was reading it.
Well, I need to watch that now. I was thinking more of Trigun.
Oh yeah, I can see that one too. Trigun
and Outlaw Star were two animes that I watched over and over and over, and you'll notice that all of well, not all of them, but most of Sal's fights involve two of them standing off and like talking to each other before they fight. And, you know, I invented this, and this is what's like interesting about that, is just I like that because I like the characters to sort of have a chance to be themselves before the fight goes on. But that's very anime, right? Like, it's never enough to just have a fight. You have to have the fighters look down at each other with their swords and explain their philosophical stances.
Just really monologue before murder.
Yeah, like have a nice philosophical monologue before, and I was like, that's super charming. Like, I really like that. But, you know, I couldn't just throw that in and just say, I like that because I like that. So that kind of, because I started with Sal and just sort of built the world around her.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, that became like the Vagrant's Code became a thing at that point, because it's considered all vagrants are Imperial, and all Imperials love opera. And, you know, they adhere to certain traditions that have been informed by opera. So amongst vagrants who think nothing of like killing hundreds of people or taking their stuff or just doing whatever the hell they want because they can, it's considered extremely rude to ambush each other, because that's undramatic, and that's, you know, that's something that uncivilized people do.
I love when like, yeah, like your monsters essentially have a code, and the code doesn't make sense to anyone but them.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, you realize how this sounds, right? And it's like, yes, but we must do the thing because
this. Yeah. And it's kind of like the last part of their old lives they hold on to, that and their swords. But yeah, I liked the idea of sort of this culture where magic has solved most of their problems. And like they've built incredible cities just with the powers of magic, and they've conquered all their nearby territories. And so they sort of have a lot of time to figure out bizarre social codes and implement them. And, you know, in the next book, we get to meet more non-vagrant ex-Imperials. And we find out like the vagrants are especially weird about it, but Imperials in general just have sort of very fancy ways of doing things, and they don't like to change those.
Yeah, nice.
Is that society something that you're planning on going into more depth in future books, or that you'd like to go into more depth in? Because we saw glimpses of it in some ways, of course, but there's you've very clearly put a lot of thought into it, and with the focus on Sal's story, we don't necessarily see all of that. So is that something that you want to tease out a bit later?
It's something that I would like, but you know, it's something that I would like people to know through the characters first. In the next book, 10 Arrows of Iron, Sal makes a new quote unquote, well, no, I mean, she's a straight up enemy, but there is like a genuine, there is a mage who like genuinely believes in the cause of the Imperium and that what they're doing is right. And so just from meeting her, we understand a little more about where Imperial loyalties lie, because, you know, I like the idea of presenting just a lot of different viewpoints from either side. And I like the idea that the audience can sort of put together an image of what they think the Imperium or the Revolution is like, because right now they're very distant, sort of formless entity. And I like that because it goes back to what I call the Kessel Run principle, which you know, in Star Wars: A New Hope, Han Solo says the Millennium Falcon can make the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs, which at the time that sounds super cool because we don't know what the hell the Kessel Run is. So it's very interesting to think like, oh wow, like because I thought like the Kessel Run was like a blockade or something, and my head was like full with this idea of like this famous attempt by smugglers to run this massive blockade. And then Solo came out and we find out it's just black holes. And like
just black holes.
Well, but that's like that's still cool.
Yeah,
that's still it's not as cool as what we came up with, because you know, that's ours. You know, that's our fantasy. So I kind of like the idea that readers can choose. Well, not choose, but you know, they have a clear idea of what the Imperium looks like, and the more I give information to them, the more they can sort of complete it together. And, you know, eventually I would love to like do like go like deeper into the Imperium and into the Revolution. But at that point I would be like be putting out a definitive answer as to what these things look like. And I don't know. Right. I don't know if I want to do that just yet.
Not ready for that yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. Speaking of next book, and I keep saying I don't think I've missed it because I've read the book that many times. But will we get to see more of like the Cacophony backstory and origin stories and like whatever the fuck's going on there?
Yes.
Because I am so invested in what is going on there. I'm like, surely I haven't missed it. Like I picked up all the little bits and pieces, and there's obviously that one scene. It's spoilery, I guess, but you know the scene where it's not, you know the scene where he's not a gun anymore.
Yeah. There have been a lot. Well, not a lot, but there have been just as many clues as to who he is as I intended to put.
Yeah.
So in book 2, we learn more about his motivations and what he wants.
Brilliant.
And then in book 3, we will learn about the deal they made.
Thank God.
Because the whole point is Sal and the Cacophony are bound together because they, and this is what makes them, work so well, is because they made a deal together.
Yeah, nice. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I have some not interview questions, audience questions from people that have some questions in earlier. Someone wanted to know why this time in Sal's story, like why not her time as Red Cloud? Why not her time, before all of that, or during the Crown Conspiracy and all that sort of stuff? So why, obviously, revenge story is fucking great.
Right.
But is that something that you would go back and do like a prequel to, or is it more of like a flashbacks thing that you're like kind of touching on in the next 2 books, or like what? Why 7 Blades in Black?
Well, it sort of goes back to the concept of the Imperium and the Revolution being nebulous and undefined. I don't want to define Sal's history too much.
Right.
A lot of her story is not just learning about. A lot of her story is not necessarily learning about getting her power back or becoming Red Cloud again. It's what Red Cloud actually did.
Yeah.
Because, we got a taste of that in her conversations with Tretta, where Sal remembers her time as Red Cloud as being full of flight, and occasionally she comes down and destroys a fortress, and then they let her get back to doing whatever she wants. But
right.
For the Revolution, like Red Cloud is horrifying. Someone who goes up and can't be stopped and just destroys everything. So, but I guess there's a recurring theme about names and identities, and 7 Blades in Black. I wanted to tell the story about Sal the Cacophony. Red Cloud is a different person.
Right.
Even Salazanka Ki Eorl is a different person, but Sal the Cacophony is here, and she carries these scars and this gun. So maybe there will be a time, but I mean in book 2 we see more of her life as Red Cloud and the people she knew back then. So yeah, I don't know, I guess the short answer is because this is the one with the magic gun. Like this is the timeline with the gun. So that's the one.
Fair enough. And I guess going off of that, obviously you've got the Gallows Black, which is the little short story with Sal and Liette meeting.
Right.
I mean, so often you see in books, obviously like 2 characters meeting for the first time is a lot of, it's a plot of its own. It's, the start of something, blah, blah, blah. But is there a reason that you chose to kind of, she already knew Liette and there was already that history prior to, even if before Gallows Black was written, or even if it didn't exist or whatever, why you kind of went middle of relationship as opposed to like the fluffy meet cute in a bar with blood and murder sort of thing?
I mean, the short answer is they're not that kind of people. They're not storybook people. They don't meet cute. They hurt each other. They they fuck up and they take each other back, even when you could make like a good argument why they shouldn't. Like they love each other, Liette and Sal, but they also are very bad for each other. So again, it's kind of the same question. Like, this is the story of Sal the Cacophony, and Sal the Cacophony destroys what she gets close to. So and it that provides Liette more to do, because if they had just met cute and like Liette was just sort of getting to know Sal, like she would probably overlook a lot of things.
Yeah,
because,
right.
She has no idea.
Color on a shit. Yeah.
But in Seven Blades of Black, Liette is very aware of Sal's problem.
She is. Yeah.
And she knows how bad she is for her, but she takes her back, or she at least hangs out with her for a long time. But if that sort of provides Liette with more agency, because she's aware of the stakes and aware of the consequences and is deciding to go in anyways.
Yeah, right.
And that provides instant conflict, which is always very nice.
Nice. No, I know. I'm a big fan of just the girls. I just love them so much. I think that was honestly, that's what got me into the story to begin with, when I was kind of like, oh, I'm just looking for like some my type of girl with like the opposite type of girl, and just that weird. So I was looking for female romance essentially.
Right.
And someone's like, oh, Seven Blades in Black. And I was like, I did not know that. And so getting into it and then finding that it was exactly the kind of relationship that I like. It wasn't the meet cute. It wasn't the beginning. It wasn't the overlooking all the flaws. It was like the full on, I'm going to call you on your bullshit. I'm going to tell you when you're wrong. And again, like I said earlier, Sal for me just does it in all of the boxes that I love. So that's what dragged me down in the ship. The next one was, if you were a mage, if you had any of your mage abilities, what kind of mage would you be? What would your name be?
Ooh.
Tell me you've thought about it.
I have.
I have a strongly long prepared answer.
I have, but I keep thinking I'm not as adventurous, so I keep thinking about in terms of barters I would not mind losing. So I kind of feel like I would be a grasp mage, like able to levitate things and move things with my hand, because like I could give up enough memories to have a nice set of powers and still hold on to the ones I liked.
Yeah, fair. So, but do you get to pick and choose the memories that you keep?
See, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
But
do you get to choose?
Another fact that has not made it into any of the books yet, but which I hope I figure out an excuse to, is that grasp mages have special dispensation from the Imperial military, so that for 1 year out of every 3 that they serve, they're allowed to go work with opera companies, because grasp mages can sort of make special effects work for operas. So the Imperium sort of opera is so important to them that say, yes,
they give back.
Yeah, these specific mages can go work in opera for a year if they want.
Amazing. That's just casually, just on the side.
One of the reasons that in the earliest Vagrant we meet Daiga the Phantom is wearing an opera mask is because it's one of his more treasured memories.
Yeah, right. Now I just kind of like supplementary material about how that works. Like, what do the special effects look like, and how do they function, and how does this like work in concert or against existing technology for special effects? And can you tell I've worked in theatre? I have a lot of questions now about that specifically. So if you ever just want to write like a document, I'll read it.
A thesis on that.
Like we're doing 3 novels and 3 novellas, so maybe the 3rd novella just needs to be about opera.
Please. Yeah.
Wouldn't be bad. It wouldn't be bad. I guess I'll throw it out to, the comments. If anyone has a question for Sam, just leave it there and we'll get to it. But before that, as that's going on, TV, film adaptations, is that a thing that you're interested in that's happening, that might happen? Do you want it?
I do want.
What do you want?
Like, I would love that. That would be so cool. I have a film guy, so
nice.
You know, it's at least, you know, there is at least more than me that's interested. So that's nice.
Right. Right.
As for anything that's happening, I have no idea. Like,
yeah.
It feels like, despite the fact that I created most of these, I'm frequently the last to know of what's actually happening with anything that's not writing.
Yeah.
So, like, I didn't even know I had a film guy until, like, someone asked me who has the rights to it, and I asked my literary agent, and he said, "Oh yeah, I already have a film guy for you." And I'm like, "Oh,
nice. Good."
The same fellow that helped with The Expanse, so I'm
nice.
I'm pretty stoked. So we'll hopefully see where that goes, but it's a very, like, publishing is already pretty weird, and like film.
Yeah, film is just a whole other ball game. Right. It's a lot of hurry up and wait.
Exactly.
All right, let me have a quick squiz at these questions. There aren't that many yet, which is also fine. Just a lot of anime love in the comments by the looks of it.
Good.
I watched one anime in my lifetime, and I don't remember what it was called, but it changed my life. Maybe you guys know. It was a bunch of schoolgirls who would go down these tubes and land in cars and then drive these cars. That is so fucking vague. I was like 10.
Yeah, I don't
cannot find it anywhere. I've Googled every sort of like schoolgirl, car, anime, transformer, fucking anyway.
Yeah,
so I'm not across the anime world, but that was wild.
Right.
Is the Empress's son really a null? I feel like that's a spoiler, or can be construed as a spoiler, or could be answered in a next book.
Yeah, we'll get to it. Like, suffice to say, whether he's a null or not, the rest of the Imperium certainly thinks he's a null.
Yeah.
So that's what led to the vagrants going vagrant, is because they had no desire to serve a null.
Yeah.
So, you know, whether there's more at stake, that there is more at stake there, but that is a huge spoiler. So I will.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll hold on to that.
Calm down.
Like, for all, as far as everyone knows, he's a null. But yeah. But yeah.
Brilliant. Cool. Easy. Well, I mean, that's all I've got. Do you have anything else?
I do have a question. Again, if you don't want to answer it because it's like, if it's covered in a book, that's fine. The Emperor, whether or not he is a null, potentially being a null is obviously a big deal. Are nulls common, or is magic more common? I guess
nulls outnumber mages by the hundreds.
Like, okay, so it's very much a political thing.
Yeah, it's a super political thing. It's just that up until the Revolution discovered Severium and built machines with it and started making firearms and tanks and stuff, nulls couldn't really do anything about mages.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, they outnumbered them by million or by thousands, but not much. None of that really matters when, you know, when it's 10 versus 100 and those 10 people can make you explode with a thought.
Flying shit, yeah.
Yeah, and like, you know, and you know, if there's even a siege mage in there, like they can't be injured or even slowed down. So it's like they couldn't really do anything about it up until they discovered the scar, and that's the only point where nulls sort of began, or, you know, non-magical people started taking control. And, you know, that's the Revolution is like way more populated. Well, not way more populated, but they outnumber the Imperial presence by quite a bit. But again, because even a you know, as I think one of the mages mentions it, but, you know, a null with a fancy toy is still a null. So it's still a very heated battle.
Crazy. And I think, just off that, with being, so the next book, is it also still set, I guess, within the same realm as the map in book one, or do we get a new map? Do we get new places? Like,
we get new places. as in 10 Arrows of Iron, Sal is sort of back on the hunt. Liette has left her. Kavrik doesn't want anything to do with her. People are all very aware that she's kind of a dick. So
yeah.
So she has tracked her prey down to this place called the Boris Valley, which is this resource-abundant area that the Imperium and the Revolution fought over before the Imperium declared victory by driving out the revolutionaries. And they built cities there. So we have a lot of interesting locales. Like, a big part of the book takes place in an Imperial-controlled city, which is sort of where we get our first glimpse into what like actual Imperial life is like. And they're ruled over by the mages, and there's animated stained glass pictures in their houses that are battling, and and there's like there are in the magic system sort of are divided into high arts and low arts. So the more esoteric your barter is, the more high in art it's considered. So like siege mages are considered to be one of the very highest arts because they give up so much. But at the very lowest arts are the puppeteers, whose arts are so boring that they're like not even worth mentioning. They don't get drafted because their magic has no talent, has no military application. But what they can do is create vivid specters, like vivid illusions that they used as sort of street performances.
Yeah, right.
And so, most of them work as like buskers and in opera when they can get it.
The artists. Yeah, right.
But so we'll see a lot of those people. We'll get an idea of how the revolution operates in Imperial territory. We'll see what happens. There's more Haven. There's more of the Ashmouths as well. Like,
nice.
It's a very cool place.
Yeah. Is it as book 2? Is it as big as book 1?
I think it got bigger.
Good.
Legend
of Man to Death with it. My favorite.
I keep trying to make them smaller, but it never works.
No, I'm a fan of a thick book, so I personally don't mind. I know a lot of our readers were like, "Why did you pick the biggest book for the smallest month?" It's just a challenge.
Yeah,
it's for fun.
Why
not?
Get with it.
Cool. Well, I think that's everything.
Yeah.
All of the things that aren't just like me screaming, "Tell me more about the cacophony." So let's just imagine that's what I'm doing over here all the time. But thank you for joining us.
Hey,
we really appreciate it.
It was a lot of fun.
Very excited for book 2. All of the links to find Sam and connect with Sam I will put in the description down below, as well as a link to where you can pre-order 10 Arrows of Iron, which you should do immediately because I said so. Alrighty, well, thank you again, and we will see everyone next time. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Ending the broadcast.